There is a universal constant in diplomatic relations. Every species, no matter how advanced, no matter how ancient, no matter how many star systems they had charted or civilizations they had outlasted, everyone had something that made them take 3 steps back. For the Yalith, it was fire. Open, uncontained, atmospheric fire. The kind humans lit casually in backyards on a Tuesday evening while laughing and burning perfectly good food on purpose. For the Srath, it was silence. Complete silence. They had evolved in a world of constant sound, and the particular quiet of human space stations at 3 a.m. made their warriors request immediate reassignment. For Ambassador Vehn Orakis of the Delvari Collective, 7 feet tall, 400 years old, veteran of 32 diplomatic summits, fluent in 19 languages, unshakable by professional reputation and personal pride, it was the cat. Not the concept of the cat, the specific cat. The one sitting on the reception desk of the Human-Delvari Cultural Exchange Center on Station Meridian-9, staring at him with the flat yellow eyes of something that had decided, before he even walked through the door, that he was fundamentally unimpressive. Vehn had reviewed the briefing files on humans extensively. 47 documents, cultural practices, dietary habits, conflict history, biological quirks. He had prepared for everything. Nobody had mentioned the cat. Ambassador Orakis, said Cultural Liaison Chen Wei, extending her hand with a warm smile. Welcome to Meridian-9. Can I get you anything before we begin? Vehn stared at the cat. The cat stared back. It blinked once, slowly, with the energy of something that had never once in its life felt threatened and saw no reason to start now. What? Vehn said carefully, is that? Chen Wei followed his gaze. Oh, that's Ambassador. A pause. You named it Ambassador. She named herself. Honestly, Chen Wei said cheerfully. She just started showing up to all the meetings. Vehn took 3 steps back. Chen Wei had been a cultural liaison for 11 years. She had facilitated exchanges with 9 different species. She had navigated 17 diplomatic misunderstandings for accidental declarations of war, and 1 incident involving a Srath warrior and a human vending machine that was still technically under review. She had never seen an ambassador take 3 steps back from a cat. Are you all right? She asked. What? Vehn said, his 4 eyes fixed on the cat. Is its threat classification? Chen Wei blinked. She's a cat. That is not an answer. She's about 4 kilograms, mostly interested in napping and knocking things off surfaces. Vehn's translator processed this. His expression suggested it had not helped. Because here was the thing about Delvari threat assessment. It was extraordinarily precise. For centuries of interstellar diplomacy had refined it into something approaching mathematical perfection. Every creature the Delvari had ever encountered was logged, measured, and assigned a comprehensive risk profile. The cat was not in the database. Vehn had checked, twice, on the shuttle ride over. There was an entry for Earth's apex predators. Lions, tigers, orca, saltwater crocodiles, all properly documented, threat levels assigned, respectful distances noted. But this small, flat-faced, boneless-looking creature that was currently stretching 1 leg behind its head in a way that suggested its skeleton was merely a suggestion. Nothing. Our files on Earth fauna, Vehn said carefully, do not include the species. We have about 37 known domestic species, Chen Wei said. Did they send you the full list? 37, Vehn repeated, give or take. Domestic meaning. We keep them in our homes, sleep in the same beds, sometimes. Vehn looked at Ambassador the cat. Ambassador the cat yawned. The yawn revealed an extremely confident collection of teeth for something that weighed 4 kilograms. In your beds, Vehn said. She sleeps on my face sometimes, Chen Wei offered helpfully. You get used to it. Vehn's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The diplomatic composure that had survived 32 interstellar summits was doing something it had never done before. It was cracking. How many, he said very slowly, of these do humans keep? Chen Wei smiled, the smile of someone who could see exactly where this was going and was going to enjoy every step of the journey. Oh, there are about 600 million of them, she said pleasantly. Just the cats. Did you want to hear about the dogs? Ambassador the cat jumped off the desk, directly toward Vehn. He moved faster than any 400-year-old diplomat had any right to move. Ambassador the cat stopped at his feet, looked up at 7 feet of Delvari Diplomat with complete and total indifference to the fact that he had just cleared 2 meters of reception floor in a single movement that his dignity would need several days to recover from. She sniffed his shoe. Apparently satisfied, she sat down on it. Vehn looked down. The cat looked up. She likes you, Chen Wei said warmly. It is sitting on my foot. That means she trusts you. It's actually a compliment. I did not consent to the compliment. Chen Wei pressed her lips together very firmly in the expression of someone exercising extraordinary professional restraint. Vehn was a decorated ambassador. He had sat across negotiating tables from species that communicated exclusively through controlled sonic blasts. He had once completed a 48-hour diplomatic summit with a species that expressed agreement by headbutting the nearest wall. He had documentation, commendations, a reputation that preceded him into rooms he hadn't entered yet. He was being defeated by 4 kilograms of domestic earth fauna that was now rhythmically kneading his shoe with its front paws. What is it doing now? He said. Making biscuits, Chen Wei said. I beg your pardon. That's what we call it. The kneading motion. Making biscuits. Vehn stared at her. You named a behavior, he said slowly, of a creature you allow to sleep on your face after a food item. We name a lot of things after food, Chen Wei said agreeably. Vehn looked back down at the cat. The cat had begun to make a sound. Low, rhythmic, continuous. His translator searched its database. Cross-referenced. Came back uncertain. Tried again. Vehn frowned. My translator, he said, is suggesting this vocalization indicates a form of contentment. She's purring, Chen Wei confirmed. Definitely likes you. How can it like me? I have been present for less than 4 minutes. Cats work on instinct. Chen Wei tilted her head. Although, honestly, sometimes I think they work on something else entirely. Something we don't have a word for yet. Vehn considered this, then looked around the reception area properly for the first time since the cat had ambushed his shoe. Something occurred to him. A cold, dawning, extremely specific something. Liaison Chen, he said carefully. This station has multiple entry points. It does. And the cat moves freely between them. She does. Unsupervised. Completely. And the other staff members also have cats, Chen Wei said. Some have too. Vehn was quiet for a long moment. When you said 37 domestic species, he said, You meant here, on this station. Chen Wei's smile did something complicated. Ambassador Orakis, she said gently, we should probably sit down. The briefing room was on the 3rd level. It had a long table, 12 chairs, a holographic display array, and a window overlooking the station's central habitat ring. It also had, Vehn discovered upon entering, 3 more cats. One was asleep on the holographic projector. One was sitting in what was clearly his chair at the head of the table and showed absolutely no intention of moving. One was on the windowsill, watching the habitat ring below with the focused intensity of a military strategist planning a campaign. Vehn stopped in the doorway. We can move them, Chen Wei offered. Can you? Vehn said. It came out less like a question than a philosophical inquiry. Chen Wei picked up the cat from his chair. The cat expressed its opinion of this through a single withering look and relocated to the center of the table, where it immediately lay down across the primary display surface. Vehn sat down. Across the table, 2 junior human staffers were already seated, both professionally composed, both very carefully not making eye contact with each other in the way of people who had made a private wager and were waiting to see who won. Ambassador, Chen Wei began, pulling up a holographic display around the cat. I thought it might be helpful to give you a fuller picture of human domestic animal culture before we proceed with the cultural exchange agenda. That, Vehn said, would have been helpful approximately 30 minutes ago. The files were sent in advance. One of the junior staffers said, helpfully. I received 47 documents. 48, the staffer said. The last one was the domestic fauna appendix. Vehn thought about the shuttle ride over. The careful preparation. The 47 documents he had reviewed with methodical Delvari thoroughness. He had not read the appendix. In 400 years of diplomatic service, he had never once needed to read an appendix. He made a note to review that decision. Chen Wei brought up the first holographic display. It showed a dog. Specifically, it showed a very large dog, the kind with a broad head and a jaw structure that made Vehn's threat assessment instincts sit up and pay attention. This, Chen Wei said, is a Rottweiler, about 50 kilograms, historically bred. Vehn interrupted. Humans intentionally bred these. We've been selectively breeding domestic animals for about 15,000 years, Chen Wei said. We got quite good at it. 15,000, Vehn said, give or take. And the purpose of this particular. Originally for herding and protection, Chen Wei said. Now mostly for companionship. They're very loyal, extremely affectionate. The holographic image cycled. The next dog was somehow larger. Great Dane, Chen Wei said, about 90 kilograms. The next, Irish Wolfhound, can reach a human's shoulder standing on forelegs. The next, Vehn leaned forward slightly despite himself. What, he said, is that? Chen Wei looked at the display. That's a Caucasian Shepherd, mountain breed, about 70 kilograms, bred to fight off wolves. And humans keep these. In their homes, Chen Wei confirmed. Sleep in the same beds. You said that about the cat. We have a type, Chen Wei said pleasantly. The cat on the table chose this moment to stand up, walk directly across the holographic display, scattering the images, and headbutt Vehn's arm with surprising force. He looked down at it. It looked up at him, purring, loudly. 400 years, Vehn said quietly to no one in particular. 32 summits. He looked at Chen Wei. How many species, he said carefully, have reviewed this appendix? Chen Wei's expression did something interesting. Most of them, she said, request a follow-up meeting. I imagine they do. The Srath delegation, one of the junior staffers offered, asked for the appendix 3 times. They wanted to confirm. The other added that the photographs were unaltered. Vehn looked at the dog breeds still cycling slowly on the display, then at the cat now sitting in his lap. He had not felt it get there. He did not know when it had decided his lap was an acceptable location. He looked at Chen Wei with the expression of a man standing at the edge of a very significant paradigm shift. Tell me, he said slowly, about the other 35 species. Chen Wei pulled up a new display. She had given this presentation before. Not officially, not as part of any sanctioned diplomatic protocol, but word traveled in interstellar circles, and over the past 2 years, she had quietly delivered variations of what her colleagues had started calling, behind her back and with great affection, the appendix talk to representatives of 4 different species. The Yalith delegate had needed to sit down at the rabbit. The Srath warrior had requested a recess at the hamster. The Delvari, she suspected, were going to have strong feelings about what came next. She pulled up the snake. Domesticated reptiles, she began. Vehn's 4 eyes moved to the display. The display showed a Burmese python, approximately 5 meters long, draped companionably around the shoulders of a smiling human woman who appeared to be standing in a kitchen. That, Vehn said, is around her neck. She's had him since he was small, Chen Wei said. His name is Gerald. Gerald, Vehn repeated. Human's name, everything, one of the junior staffers said, a little apologetically. We've established that, Vehn said. The display cycled. A tarantula, sitting calmly on a human hand. The human was smiling. The tarantula, as far as Vehn could determine, was also somehow smiling. Arachnids, Chen Wei said, over 1 million species globally, several hundred kept as domestic pets, completely legal, widely available. Available, Vehn said, as in purchasable. There are entire dedicated marketplaces, Chen Wei confirmed. The display cycled. A scorpion, in a glass enclosure on what appeared to be a living room bookshelf between a potted plant and a framed family photograph. You keep them next to your family photographs, Vehn said. Emperor Scorpion, Chen Wei said. Relatively docile. Popular starter pet. Starter, Vehn said. The word seemed to trouble him specifically. For people new to exotic pets, Chen Wei clarified. Before they move on to more advanced species. The silence that followed had texture. More advanced, Vehn said carefully, than a scorpion. Chen Wei pulled up the next display. A monitor lizard, approximately 2 meters long, sitting on a sofa beside a human teenager who was watching a screen and absently scratching the lizard's head with the focused inattention of someone who had done this 10,000 times. Savannah monitor, Chen Wei said, about 15 kilograms. Needs a large enclosure, specialized diet, and significant enrichment activity. Enrichment activity, Vehn repeated. They get bored, the junior staffer explained. You have to keep them mentally stimulated. You, Vehn said slowly, keep a 2-meter predatory reptile, and worry about its mental stimulation. Board monitors chew through walls, Chen Wei said seriously. So yes. Vehn looked at the cat still sitting in his lap. The cat was watching the holographic display with what appeared to be professional interest. Let me, Vehn said, ask a clarifying question. Of course. These animals, the reptiles, the arachnids, the large canines, the cat, currently conducting an unauthorized audit of my lap. They exist in human homes, alongside human children. Mostly yes. And the children are. Fine, Chen Wei said. Generally better than fine. Actually, studies show children raised with animals develop stronger empathy, lower stress responses, and significantly higher emotional resilience. Vehn absorbed this. Your children, he said, develop emotional resilience by cohabitating with apex predators. When you say it like that, I am saying it, Vehn said, exactly like that. The display cycled again. A small human child, perhaps 3 years old, fast asleep, curled against the side of an enormous Newfoundland dog that outweighed the child by approximately 10 times. The dog had its chin resting protectively over the child. Both were deeply, completely, peacefully unconscious. The room was quiet. Even the cat stopped purring for a moment. Vehn stared at the image for a long time. Something shifted in his expression. The diplomatic composure was still there. 400 years of careful professional architecture, still standing. But something underneath. It was doing something it hadn't done in a very long time. That dog, he said quietly. It's protecting the child. Always, Chen Wei said. Just that. Just the one word. Vehn looked at the display. At the child. At the dog. At the absolute certainty in the animal's sleeping posture that nothing in the universe was going to touch what it had decided to protect. How long, he said softly, have humans kept dogs? About 15,000 years, Chen Wei said. Maybe longer. The relationship is so old, we're not entirely sure where it begins. Vehn was quiet for a moment. In Delvari culture, he said, we have a concept. Roughly translated, it means the bond that precedes language. Chen Wei looked at him. The connection, he continued, that exists before words were invented to describe it. He looked at the sleeping child and the sleeping dog. We believed, he said slowly, that only Delvari had ever achieved it. The junior staffers exchanged a look. Chen Wei said nothing. Sometimes the best diplomatic move was simply to let a moment breathe. Show me. Vehn said quietly the rest of the appendix. The rest of the appendix took 2 hours. Vehn did not request a single recess. He sat through the ferrets. They are liquid, he said at one point, watching a holographic ferret pour itself through a cardboard tube. That creature has no bones. They have bones, Chen Wei said. They just choose not to use them. He sat through the rabbits, which he found unexpectedly distressing. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were so completely vulnerably soft that the concept of keeping them in a world that contained monitors and pythons and Caucasian shepherds seemed like a statistical miracle. He sat through the birds. The parrots specifically gave him pause. It's speaking, he said. They mimic human speech, yes. That one said, a word my translator flagged as inappropriate. African greys pick things up very quickly, Chen Wei said carefully. You have to watch what you say around them. You have to watch, Vehn said. What you say? Around a bird. They remember everything, the junior staffer said, with the weight of personal experience. Vehn sat through the hedgehogs and the chinchillas and the miniature pigs the humans kept in apartments and dressed in small garments for reasons that Chen Wei described as affection mostly, and also they look very funny in hats. He sat through the axolotl, which he stared at for a full 90 seconds before saying simply, why, and accepting we think they're charming as an answer with remarkable diplomatic grace. He sat through the horses. You ride them, he said, for about 6,000 years. On their backs. They allow it. They allow, he stopped, recalibrated. You have a working relationship. More than that, Chen Wei said quietly, some bonds between humans and horses run deeper than most relationships between humans. The display showed a horse and rider silhouetted against a sunset, moving together. One motion, one rhythm, something so synchronized it looked choreographed and wasn't. Vehn watched it for a long time. He was building something in his mind. Vehn could feel it happening the way you feel a large structure being assembled in a dark room. Piece by piece, the shape of it becoming clear, before you could see the whole. Humans surrounded themselves with living things, not as resources, not as tools, not as status symbols or scientific subjects or strategic assets, as family, creatures that bit, creatures that stung, creatures that shed and scratched and knocked things off surfaces and learned inappropriate words and chewed through walls when bored and slept on human faces and sat on important diplomatic shoes. All of them. Everyone, welcomed in, named, Federal worried over, mourned when they were gone. Liaison Chun, he said, Ambassador. The Delvari have a word, he said slowly, for species that we consider elevated, beyond simple classification, species whose existence makes the galaxy more than it would be without them. Chen Wei waited. We have applied it, he continued, to 7 species in 4 centuries of exploration. He looked at the display, at the horse and rider moving together against a burning sky. I am going to recommend, he said carefully, that we add an 8th. Chen Wei looked at him. The animals, she said softly. No, Vehn said. He looked at the cat in his lap, at the image of the sleeping child and the guardian dog, at the python named Gerald, and the parrot that remembered everything, and the axolotl that had no justification for existing and existed anyway, magnificently. The species, he said, that looked at all of these creatures, every dangerous, impractical, inconvenient, magnificent one of them, and said, he paused. The cat purred. Come inside. He finished quietly. You belong with us. The room was very still. Outside the briefing room window, the station's habitat ring turned slowly. Somewhere in it, Vehn knew now there were cats and dogs and birds and things with no bones and things with too many legs and one very opinionated parrot. All of them home. All of them chosen. Ambassador Orakis, Chen Wei said softly, would you like to meet the station animals? Properly, I mean. Vehn looked down at the cat. The cat looked up at him, still purring, still completely certain, with the ancient instinctive certainty of something that had lived beside humans for longer than most civilizations had existed, that this particular 7-foot 4-eyed alien diplomat was going to be just fine. Yes, Vehn said. Then, after a pause, with the careful precision of someone learning a new language 1 word at a time, I think I would like that very much. The formal report reached the Delvari Collective on a Wednesday. Ambassador Vehn Orakis, 32 years of diplomatic service, 400 years of careful, measured, methodical existence. A record so clean and consistent that junior diplomats studied it at the Academy as a model of professional restraint. His reports were legendary for their precision. This one was 43 pages long. The Council of 7 read it in complete silence, then read it again, then sat for a very long time in the particular quiet of governing bodies that have encountered something that doesn't fit any existing category and are too dignified to say so out loud. Counselor Drev, eldest of the 7, and in 40 decades of service famously Unshakeable, set down the report with the careful deliberateness of someone putting down something fragile. He recommends, she said, elevating humanity to the 8th elevated species designation. Yes, said Counselor ALN, on the basis of their relationship with domestic animals. On the basis, ALN said carefully, of what that relationship reveals about them. Yes, Drev looked at page 31. Page 31 contained photographs. Vehn had included 17 of them. Chen Wei had helped him select them. Though she hadn't asked why he wanted them and he hadn't explained, a child asleep against a dog 3 times her size, an elderly human man sitting on a porch step, a cat pressed against his side, both of them looking at the same horizon, a young woman in a hospital bed, a therapy dog's head in her lap, her hand in its fur, her eyes closed and her face doing something pain had temporarily interrupted, a soldier returning from deployment, kneeling on an airport floor, his face buried in the neck of a dog that was shaking from the effort of containing its joy. A boy, maybe 8 years old, saying goodbye to a goldfish. Actually saying goodbye, head bowed, hands folded, the full ceremony of grief given to something that weighed less than a sandwich. Drev looked at the photographs for a long time. The bond that precedes language, she said quietly. He quotes it directly, ALN confirmed. Page 37. She turned to 37. Vehn's prose was, as always, precise, but something underneath the precision was different. Something that 400 years of diplomatic formality had not quite managed to contain. They do not love carefully, he had written. They do not calculate the return on affection or assess the strategic value of attachment. They simply open the door for the stray and the wounded and the inconvenient and the strange. They open the door and they say, come in, and mean it completely, without reservation, without condition, without any apparent awareness that this is remarkable. We have traveled 4 centuries of stars looking for signs of elevated civilization. I sat in a briefing room on Station Meridian-9 while a 4-kilogram Earth feline conducted an unsanctioned audit of my lap, and I understood with complete and sudden clarity that we have been measuring the wrong things. Drev set down the report. Outside the council chamber, the Delvari home world turned in its ancient orbit. For centuries of careful exploration, 7 elevated species, a database of civilizations measured and categorized and filed with Delvari thoroughness. Call a full session, she said. For the elevation vote? ALN asked. For that, Drev said, and because I want the complete appendix distributed to every council member before we convene. She looked at page 31 again. The soldier and the dog, the airport floor, the shaking joy. All 48 documents, she said quietly. This time, someone reads the appendix. 3 weeks later, humanity received the Delvari elevation designation. The ceremony was broadcast across 47 inhabited systems. Ambassador Vehn Orakis presented the designation in person on Station Meridian-9. Chen Wei accepted it on behalf of humanity with a short speech, a firm handshake, and the quiet dignity of someone who had always known this moment would come and had simply been waiting for the right diplomat to read the right file. Ambassador the cat attended the ceremony. She sat on the podium for the duration. Nobody moved her. Counselor Drev, watching the broadcast from the homeworld, looked at the cat. At the dignified chaos of the reception afterward, humans introducing their animals to increasingly overwhelmed Delvari attaches, a parrot loudly greeting the cultural envoy in 3 languages, someone's golden retriever making immediate and devoted friends with a diplomat who had never in 400 years of life encountered unconditional love delivered at that velocity. She laughed. The sound surprised her. It surprised everyone in the council chamber. Drev laughed, and it was the laugh of someone who had spent 4 centuries looking for proof that the universe was worth the trouble of exploring, and had just found it, in a 4-kilogram cat, sitting on a podium, completely certain it belonged there.